AFR Talk.
You're listening to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Video segments of today's program will be posted at afr.net and on the Focal Point Facebook page. You'll also find the best collection of Brian's resources on our Facebook page. If you're on Twitter, you can be among the first every morning to find out what today's show will be about. Just follow Brian at Brian J. Fisher.
Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Great to have you in the conversation. I just had a little bit of trouble on the break calling up the website Don't Fund It. For some reason, I got that 404 error message. It wouldn't pop up. So if you have that same problem, let us know and keep trying, because I think that's an important issue. Now, again, the big story there is that right now, the government is being funded through what are called continuing resolutions, or CRs. That is because the Senate has not produced a budget in 4.5 years. There is no budget because the Senate has not produced a budget. The House has produced a budget. The Senate won't do it. Harry Reid won't produce a budget. They've got a statutory obligation. Again, it's just an indication of how lawless the liberals in D.C. are right now. The law means nothing to them. They have a statutory obligation. It's a matter of law that they have to submit a budget every year. He hasn't done it in 4.5 years. So the way the government is funded are through these continuing resolutions. Well, this continuing resolution is going to have funding in there, usually for the same expenditures that have been a part of the federal budget up to that point. That's why it's called a continuing resolution. We're just going to keep spending money at the same level for the same stuff. But what that means is you can go in there and you can say, okay, I'll support this continuing resolution, but not if it includes funding to implement Obamacare. I'm not going to vote for this thing if it has any money that will be used to implement Obamacare. Not going to do it. You can vote against the continuing resolution. There's nothing says that you have to vote for it, take it or leave it. You got to vote for it as is. That's not written anywhere. You can vote no on it if it's got funding in it to which you object. So this thing Obamacare, I think Byron York and all these other people are just dead flat wrong. There's no money to implement it. If you don't have any money to pay the people in the call centers, you don't have any money to pay the IRS agents, you don't have any money to pay the people that are setting up and running the exchanges, how in the world are you going to make this thing work? It's like, having your car disabled, and maybe the mechanic only costs you a pittance compared to what the car did, but if the car is not going to run if you don't pay the mechanic to fix it. So I think it is a useful strategy and something that ought to be pursued. Now, there's a wrinkle that's come up in the healthcare law. I just kind of love this when liberals trip up all over themselves. Everything's got unintended consequences. You can't think of everything, even in a 2,700-page bill. This is in the New York Times for today. As President Obama barnstorms the country promoting his healthcare law, one audience very close to home is growing increasingly anxious about the financial implications of the new coverage members of Congress and their personal staffs under a wrinkle that dates back to the enactment of the law. Members of Congress and thousands of their aides are required to get their coverage through new state-based markets known as insurance exchanges. This is Republicans did that. What the Republicans said, look, let's put everybody on the same plan that Congress is on. And Congress said no. Democrats said no, we don't want that. We don't want everybody on the same plan that we're on. We like the program we have. And then the Republicans embarrassed the Democrats that they wanted this special deal. They wanted this special tier. The health care they were going to stick you with wasn't good enough for them. That embarrassed the Democrats into saying, okay, everybody in Congress and their staff, they got to go on Obamacare just like everybody else does. No special cafeteria line for us. We got to be on the same meal plan that everybody else is. Well, the problem is prior to this, Congress, well, you and me, taxpayers, were paying for their health insurance premiums under this wrinkle that they voted for. Democrats voted for this. It's in Obamacare because they voted for it. There is no provision for taxpayers to pay for the health insurance that they get through the exchanges. So the law says they've got to get insurance through the exchanges. The law does not provide $1 of taxpayer money to purchase the insurance. They got to cough it all up out of pocket. before they had this free ride. Taxpayers floating the boat. I don't know if it was all of it or most of it or the majority of it or what, but they were getting their health insurance basically provided by their employer. Well, that's gone now under Obamacare, and they are in a full-fledged panic because they're looking at $5,000 for individuals and $11,000 for a family to pay for health insurance. So they are not happy campers about that. And here's another aspect of this that is potentially one of these anvils around the neck of the American economy. Detroit, remember, they're looking at $5.7 billion in outstanding retiree health costs. That's money that they have obligated to spend, and they don't have the money. They don't have it anywhere. People aren't buying real estate in Detroit. Their property taxes are 3 times as high as the average in the United States. They have the highest property tax rate in the country, and that's why people are leaving. Why would they want to live in Detroit where the property taxes are 3 times as high as a home in the suburbs? They're just going to move outside Detroit to escape the taxes. That's what these liberals are they don't understand human nature. They're naive, they're gullible, they're foolish, they're short-sighted. They live in this Pollyannish ideal world. Oh, we want more tax money, let's just raise taxes. They think it works like that. They just don't think that people are going to adjust their behavior to minimize their tax burden, and people do. So that explains most of the problems we're having now with Obamacare and everybody going to part-time hours and all that kind of thing. But Detroit is looking at solving its healthcare problems for its employees by dumping them all into Obamacare. That's how they're going to get out from under this thing. They're going to take them completely off city coverage, and they are going to dump them into the exchanges, into the federal government program. So you got cash-strapped cities all across the fruited plain, just like Chicago, that are going to be looking at doing exactly the same thing. Pew Charitable Trust study recently discovered that 61 of the country's leading cities have made a combined promise of $126.2 billion worth of retiree health coverage to their public sector workers, but only 6% of that cost is funded. So how are they going to solve their problem? They're going to dump it on us. They're going to dump all of their city employees on you and me and force us to cough up the money through these subsidies for their health care. And you want to talk about something else, and then we'll go to the phones, 888-589-8840. Talk about something else that happens with socialized health care. Here's a guy in New Zealand, lived there for 6 years, and they are going to deport this guy because he's obese. He's 5'8", he weighs 286 pounds. Now, that's hefty. No question about that. But, I mean, there's a lot of people in America that weigh 286 pounds. Trust me on this. They're about the same size. So maybe from a technical standpoint, it's obese. Maybe it's morbidly obese. But New Zealand's going to kick him out of the country because they don't want to cover his health care costs. That's what happens when you have the government managing and running all of the health care services. Then the government gets to decide who gets help and who doesn't. Now, if this guy's dealing with the private market, which is where it should be, then he's going to have to pay more for health insurance because they know that there are risks that come with obesity. So he's going to have to pay more for his health insurance premiums, but that's his choice, and he gets health care. Now he's in a situation where, since the government controls everything in New Zealand, he can't get health care even if he wants it, even if he could afford it, and he's getting thrown completely out of the country. Been there for 6 years. And the New Zealand government says, we can't take the risk of what your health care costs are going to be down the road. We're sending you back home to South Africa. So, I mean, you talk about a death panel. I mean, that's not a death panel exactly, but that's a guy who has these bureaucrats in some cubicle somewhere deciding what kind of health care he's going to be eligible for and what kind he is not. He doesn't have a thing to say about it. Let's go to the phones. Let us go to Tommy in Dallas, Texas. Tommy, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for taking my phone call.
You bet. What's up?
Hey, I was going to talk to you about the don'tfundit.com, I believe.
Yes.
Question, how many signatures would we need to get that, even for them to look at, to evaluate to even get passed, possibly.
Well, it's not going to have any legal weight. It is purely for the purpose of generating public pressure on senators to let them know how many people in America want this thing stopped in its tracks.
Okay, cool.
So,
real quick question, or another comment I'm going to make about New Zealand, about that guy that's getting kicked out.
yeah.
We're already kind of starting it over here with the Boy Scouts of America, having the kids that are unable to pass a physical exam to go through camp, I believe, right?
Yeah, they set obesity standards, and if a kid was overweight, he's not going to be allowed at the Boy Scout Jamboree. You're too fat, you don't get in.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, man, you think about, it's one thing when the Boy Scouts do it because that's a private organization, but when the government tells you can't do this or can't do that, we're deciding that, then you've got no place you can go with that. You're kind of stuck with that. So, yeah, it's similar, but it's even worse when it's some government bureaucrat, doing it too. If it's a, private organization, you can always register a complaint. You can go to the Boy Scout board and you can try to get the policy changed, and they could turn on a dime. They could change it on a dime. It's the government. Good luck with all of that. All right. Appreciate the call. Thank you for that, Tommy. Let's go to Carrie in Ella Vita, Arkansas. Carrie, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brian.
Hi.
Thank you so much for your program. Bless you. And we just really appreciate all that you're doing to turn this nation around, if that's possible. I'm wondering, a lot of us elderly, or some of us aren't elderly, we don't have an internet, so we'd like to sign up. Is there any phone number or anything that we could set up so that we can also petition or be part of it?
Well, I cannot get right now to the Don't Fund It website. I don't know if it's just being overwhelmed with people or they've had some kind of technical glitch. I cannot get to the website. You might try calling Ted Cruz's office, and because somebody in his office could tell you if there is another way to do it. I know you're in Arkansas, but Ted Cruz is kind of running this deal. And the number to call, here's the number to call Capitol Hill switchboard. You can get hold of any of your congressmen, either your representative or either of your senators, 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121.
Okay.
So, Carrie, I would encourage you to call Senator Cruz's office and see if there's another way that you can register your support.
Yes.
All right, you're listening to Focal Point on AFR Talk. We'll be right back with more of your calls, 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. The Florida Insurance Commissioner said that insurance rates in Florida are going up 30 to 40% next year because of Chernobyl care. Back in 2.